Allie.
I'm Nick.
And this is But Have You Tried, the podcast from the David A. Howe Public Library. Where we have each other try random things to see if the other one likes it. So today, Nick is trying miso soup.
I am, and what a wild pivot. I respect the the change from Elvis Presley to miso soup. I like that. Now, to say that I wanted to do this podcast primarily so that I could trick you into making me food would be an exaggeration, but not an outright lie. Here's a true story, Allie. Since you started working here, every time I walk by your office and you're like having lunch or whatever, I'm like, what smells so good? So
that's good to know.
So maybe everything has been working towards this moment where we have lunch
been leading toward this
for
moment.
a podcast.
And I will say a lot of the time, if I make anything like stir fry or whatever, I put a little miso paste in it because I think it makes it better. So
there you go.
It's all coming full circle.
Okay. Well, I did some research on miso soup. So let me tell you the things that I found out. Are you ready?
I am so ready.
Okay. I read this from the New York Times by Eric Kim. So this was on like a miso recipe directly from the New York Times. And this was the little paragraph leading into it. In the United States, especially in Japanese American restaurants, the standard version of miso soup usually involves little more than soft tofu, seaweed, and a lily pad suspension of scallions. Think of this recipe as your blank canvas. You could add thinly sliced shiitake mushrooms at the end, or replace the katabushi entirely with dried shiitakes for a vegan version. Fried tofu, clams, and even chicken are all fair game when cooking miso soup at home. That's according to the New York Times. How do you feel about that?
You know, I never really put anything fancy in it. I also never put anything meat related in it.
Yeah, I appreciate that as a vegetarian.
Nope.
This is from the Kobe Jones food blog, Miso Soup and Its Origins. It's believed that over 3/4 of people in Japan consume miso soup at least once a day. The origins of this popular dish can be traced back to ancient times. It became a daily meal for the samurais during the Kamakura period, from 1185 to 1333, and during the age of Japanese civil wars. The recipe for its instant paste was developed for military commanders to eat, which made miso soup an easily preparable and accessible meal.
That kind of makes sense.
Okay.
It can be pretty quick when you just like dissolve
just make it happen. All right, so tell me what we got here today. I've got the bowl in front of me.
So in this bowl,
yes.
I started by taking a piece of kombu seaweed, and simmering it to make broth.
What is that? Just like a seaweed?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a tougher kelp seaweed.
I see. All right.
And it's recommended that you take it out after you simmer it because it can be kind of tough. And I a lot of the time will just eat it anyway.
Okay.
But I figured for you, I would take it out since that's what you're supposed to do.
So you soak it just to get like the essence of it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I now have some wet kombu in my fridge to use again later.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. The gift that keeps on giving.
Right. So also in this bowl is dissolved miso paste, which is made from fermented soybeans and sometimes some other ingredients.
Okay.
Which sounds like you're like,
fermented.
Yeah,
you said
but
fermented.
I mean,
So, yep.
There's also carrots, which is not the most authentic.
Okay.
But I think it's good.
All right.
And I'm always a fan of putting more vegetables in things.
Yeah, why not?
It just makes it better.
I agree.
There is silken tofu and wakame seaweed, as well as some green onions.
Okay. I don't do a lot of tofu. I mean, you'd think I would, eating strictly vegetarian, but I don't very often. When I do, I'm never like, oh, this is gross. The few times that we've cooked with tofu, that kind of grosses me out. Where
it is a strange
you're like wringing
substance.
it out and stuff. I'm like,
Yeah. And I know you're supposed to be able to like press your tofu.
Yeah, right.
And it gets some of the liquid out and then it doesn't crumble.
Yeah.
This does not work for me. I don't understand how people make the like perfect little filleted tofu squares.
These look pretty good to me.
Thanks. I tried to like chop and make them like loosely cube-ish.
Okay.
But
all right.
And it's silken tofu, so it's extra hard because it'll just like crumble before your eyes.
Should we try before it gets cold?
Before it gets cold, go for it.
Okay, I'm gonna do it. I apologize to everyone to have to listen to me eat soup.
I already had a little soup while he was giving background on what miso is.
I like it.
Nice.
It's really good. It has sort of like has kind of an herby feel, but it also feels really light.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Which I'm always, especially for lunches, I just want something like light and easy. I don't want like bread on top of bread. I mean, I do want that, but it makes me feel terrible.
That's fair. I can see that.
So this feels like it would be the perfect lunch. So why carrots if that's not normal? You just like the extra veggie?
I like the extra veggie. Also, my dad is also a pretty big fan of miso.
Okay.
And a lot of the time, if he would just kind of like spontaneously make miso someday, he would throw in some carrots, and I thought that was really good.
I mean, everybody has carrots, right? It seems like most people would have a carrot.
It's an easy thing that if you're like, what kind of vegetable do I have? You probably have a carrot.
So what would you have this, like, would you just eat this by itself, or would you do like bread or another dish, or just like...
You can eat it with rice. That's fairly common. But I mean, I also think you could eat it with whatever else you want.
Like over rice or just in addition to?
Either way.
Okay.
So another thing is I tend to want to eat this when I'm like sick. Either if I'm recovering from a stomach bug, because it's like, it's very nutritious. You all right over there?
Yeah, I'm trying not to crunch.
Okay. It's very nutritious and it's also pretty light on your stomach, I've found. So if my stomach is like ready for some more food, but not like very much solid foods or anything yet, I'll often just make some miso broth and rice.
Okay.
And mix it together and eat that.
So do you like Japanese food in general, or is this just like a family thing, or where did it come from?
I'm not totally sure. So I like the only food that I know for a fact that I've had that's Japanese food is this and sushi.
Sure.
I may have had other things and just not realized.
Yeah.
The way that I encountered this soup, actually.
Yes.
In my youngin' days.
Okay.
I was homeschooled.
Yes,
some
I'm
listeners
familiar.
may know.
Uh-huh.
And
which I've never made fun of. I just
of course
want to put
not. I don't know why you would.
Never made a joke about homeschooling.
Right. It's a super extremely normal thing to do.
Totally.
Definitely a lot more normal
Never made fun
than
of it.
going to public school.
I went to a tiny Christian school, so you're welcome to make fun of me for that.
Maybe I will. So we participated in a homeschool co-op. And
oh, yeah. Okay.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And one of the options that often would be offered for classes.
I'm still eating, but go on.
All right, I'll keep going. You enjoy.
I will.
Was a cooking class. And so one of the cooking classes that was offered once was a gross foods cooking class.
Gross foods?
Gross foods. And so it was like a bunch of like fermented things or things that are a little weird, but they're delicious. And so like wonton soup that has fish sauce, which is kind of like fermented fish drippings.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
But it's delicious.
Sure, fish
and
drippings.
this was one of the offerings. Right? That's how you know it's going to be an absolutely delicious food. And because this has fermented soybeans in it, it counts as a gross food. And also, I mean, like, some people might think seaweed is gross.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a nerd to that by now.
No, I've had seaweed before. My wife has made a take on a fish fry that incorporates seaweed into it to get some of that fishy taste.
That makes sense.
Pretty good. And my father-in-law, who's Canadian, aggressively Canadian, likes some like seaweed chips. Like,
is it like the crunchy like seaweed snacks?
Yeah,
those are also really good.
Which is crazy. That seems like a cry for help to me, but I mean,
I think they're delicious.
Yeah.
They're just like salty and
I guess
good.
Okay.
But
so it was like a homeschool co-op cooking class.
It was a homeschool co-op cooking class.
This was featured in it.
This was featured. So and shout out to Rebecca Lindemood who taught that class.
Yeah, I know her.
Yes. Yeah. That's where this came from. So this is secondhand to you from Rebecca Lindemood.
Okay. All right. She's still doing, she was pretty active with like food blogging and things like that.
Yeah, she has a really great food blog called Foodie with Family, which I regularly refer to for recipes.
Yeah. We'll drop the link in Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at DA Howe Library or on Facebook at David A. Howe Library, but we'll stick a little link in there. Forgive me, I have to open my sparkling water.
Go for it. Well, that was a really loud sparkling water open.
I know.
Hope that everyone heard that.
Yeah.
It was dramatic too. There was like a little bit of
it's a kiwi watermelon, but it tastes like cucumber.
I'm going to take a few bites of this soup.
Go ahead. Again, this is a terrible thing to do on a podcast, but here we are. You mentioned wonton soup, and that was sort of what I was thinking of. Like when you mentioned this, I was like in my mind, I was like, I wonder if it'll be like wonton soup. When I was really little, my best friend's name was Roger Liu, and Roger's parents owned this really cool Chinese restaurant called Tony's Chop Suey, and then later they opened a bigger one called the Golden Dragon, and so we would go there just like all the time, and I would always get the wonton soup, and I loved it so much. I would get wonton soup, sweet and sour chicken, and the tea, which I just loved the tea that you got. I don't even know what kind it was, but they had like the best tea at this place. I would get that all the time. So I was kind of like, that was the comparison that I had in my mind. And it's not really like wonton soup.
I also am a big fan of wonton soup, I should say. And I feel like they share a certain like lightness to them, like you mentioned. But in terms of like texture and flavor, they're fairly different. I don't know.
Yeah. I love a good soup. I mean, bring it on. Absolutely. That's what I say. I'm a big sushi fan. There's a place in like Hamburg or like Orchard Park, that area by Buffalo, called Ichiban, which had great sushi rolls, especially like before I fully gave up like meat and fish and everything. Right. I was always getting like the spicy tuna rolls or like the dragon rolls or whatever. I love them. And I still like sushi, but like avocado rolls and things like that are more like
that makes sense,
flavored and everything. So would you count this as like a comfort food?
I totally would.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else is on your list of comfort food then?
I like to do this thing where I take a tortilla and I like fry some beans and put them on a bed of salsa and then fry an egg and put that on top and some cheese and like wrap it all up.
Any weird usage of egg, I'm here for.
Right.
I love it.
It's so good in so many surprising ways.
I know. My wife and I went to New York City earlier this year. We went to this cool little pizza place, and I got this like margarita pizza, but with a farm fresh egg like cracked on top of it. And I'd never had anything like that before, but it was so good. I loved it.
I tried to make something like that once. It didn't turn out as good as I was hoping.
Okay.
I think my technique just left a little to be desired.
Anything like that where you can like incorporate egg into. I mean, I eat a million eggs because like, again, vegetarian.
Yeah.
I need my protein. I feel like most ethnic foods I'm down for,
There's so many good flavors.
I know. Yeah. And especially like, again, trying to find things that are not so meat heavy. It seems like, Mexican or Indian food, which I eat a lot of. It just has so many options, because
absolutely.
whether it's potatoes or beans or anything like that, it's really easy to find alternative. What's your go-to? Like if you were going to go out, if you were at a place where it was like any type of restaurant that you can imagine. I've never had a good experience with Ethiopian food.
You've never had a good experience?
I haven't.
Does that mean you had a bad experience with
Yes.
Ethiopian
I mean,
food?
I've only had it twice in my life. Once, were you there? I was at the Sojourners in Belmont, and they did like a...
I think I missed that one,
Okay.
actually. I know what you're talking about, though.
So like some of the flavors were good and everything. And then just recently when I was at the ALA conference in New Orleans, I ordered in Ethiopian food, and I just didn't
Didn't work
I
for
didn't
you?
know. I didn't like vibe with it. So it wasn't
that's a
really
shame.
my go-to. But what would you choose?
Probably Indian food.
Okay. That's a good choice.
I mean, but there's so many good choices that it's,
Yeah.
it's difficult.
Yeah, I said earlier that I don't want bread on top of bread on top of bread, but there's no amount of naan that I wouldn't eat. You know what I mean? Like if there's naan, I'm going to eat it,
That's
whether I need it or not.
as you should, you should.
Yeah.
Well, I also am just a huge bread person, so I'm like, any meal is better with bread.
That's
Doesn't
true.
matter what it is.
That's true. Yeah.
Add some bread.
That absolutely can't be denied. Well, this is going on my list. I feel like I'll eat miso soup again before you'll listen to Elvis.
Before I listen to Elvis
what I
again.
think.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. And I have to say, speaking of weird ways to incorporate eggs, it's a totally
What a segue.
valid.
Yeah.
It's a totally valid thing to put a boiled or a poached egg in miso soup if you want to.
Oh.
So if you
okay.
have like a boiled egg and you want to like cut it in half and put it in your bowl,
Yeah.
or like poach an egg and,
Okay.
and put it in. Sometimes in college when I was like in the dorm and I had a really early morning class and I didn't want to go to the cafeteria, I would just like boil some water,
Yeah.
put some miso paste in it and just mix it around and just like put in a boiled egg and eat it and be like, this works.
That works. Yeah. My wife and I went to this cool ramen shop in Ithaca. We were up there for our anniversary, and I got the ramen that I got was like, with hard boiled eggs in it, and it was super good. Your comfort food suggestion reminded me of one of my favorite like simple things to make, and that is it's avocado, and then like I cook black beans with a little bit of cumin and salsa, and then slice up the avocado and just like put it in a tortilla, and that's it, and just eat it. Like it's super simple, and there's never a time when I don't want that.
That does sound really good.
But what happens is I basically just buy an avocado because my wife's allergic. So it's like only me who's going to eat avocado. So I'll buy the avocado and then it will slowly die. And then I'll buy a new avocado and it will slowly die. You got to act fast.
Avocados are really hard
You
because
have
it's
to
like
act fast.
it goes from this still is not ripe enough to whoops, you missed it
Yeah.
in like 18 hours.
Yes. Yeah. I have the
And-
same struggle with bananas.
Yeah, that's true.
get through
I
it.
prefer bananas when they're not quite ripe.
Okay.
When they're actually ripe, I find them a little too sweet.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's very much that thing of like I bring them home and I get them like really green so that they'll actually get to that spot where I want them. And then I'll turn around and they'll all be flecked
Dead.
with brown. And I'm
Yep.
like, well,
That is the way it goes. So who's the primary cooker at your house?
I'd say I'm the primary cooker, but Caleb is the primary baker.
Oh, okay. What kind of things does he bake?
He makes bagels.
He makes bagels?
He makes bagels.
Oh my gosh.
He basically
We need
there's
to spin off this podcast right now so Caleb can make me homemade bagels. How do we make that happen?
we can figure it out.
Okay,
I'm sure.
let's do it.
But early in our marriage, we were like, we both really love bagels, but we're tired of going through bagel bags so fast. Let's try making bagels. And they turned out pretty well. And then Caleb was like turned into this bagel making gremlin and was like, now I want to make bagels all the time. So we always have homemade bagels in the house. There's only two things that we eat for breakfast on weekdays, and it's either Cheerios or a homemade bagel.
Wow.
And most days it's a homemade bagel.
Same shape. From far away,
I
you can't
know.
tell what you're looking at. Cream cheese? What do you do with the bagels?
I like cream cheese.
Okay.
But I run through cream cheese really fast, so then I'm like, well, Butter. And
Butter.
I like to put cinnamon sugar
I like
on
butter
the
and peanut butter on a bagel. I I have to point out that you said early in your marriage, because I'm trying to do the math. Have you been married like 6 months?
Yeah, a little less than 6 months.
So in those first couple of weeks,
In the first couple
you were
of
like,
weeks
enough
is
of
when
this.
we were like,
We're gonna make
have to-
bagels.
Well, the bags you run out of really fast.
I know.
Like if you buy a bag with 6 bagels and each of you have a bagel
A day
for breakfast a
But
day,
you could get through that in
that's
3 days.
3 days.
Yeah.
And that's just ridiculous.
That's true.
So
I already popped a sparkling water in here, and this is like primarily what I drink. I don't drink a lot of pop, though I do love Coca-Cola in a glass bottle.
understandable.
Anytime, I'll take that. But I've thought about getting one of those like machines that you can get that like you can make your own sparkling water, because that's how much I go through it. It's
That makes
embarrassing to see how many like sparkling water cans are around my house.
We
Look
bought
like a
like
hoarder.
a giant
I'm gonna eat more miso soup.
you go for it. I'll talk for a little so you can munch.
Okay.
We bought a giant pack of boxes of my favorite tea, which is Constant Comment from Amazon.
That's pretty good.
Because there's like, if you buy just one of those packs from the store, it's like 20 tea bags, which
Yeah.
if you have 2 cups a day,
2 cups. You're
I
doing 2
have
cups.
one in the morning and one when I get home from work.
Oh, okay.
It's what powers me through
Plain?
the day.
Are you just like sugar and
I do
cream
milk and
or
sugar.
anything? You like sugar?
Yeah.
Okay.
I find it, like, I know a lot of people are like, it's better to just drink it black. But I
Yeah.
find that a little bit of sugar, I can taste the flavors of the tea more.
I think that's true. Yeah, I used to do sugar all the time, and I've just tried to cut back a little bit on it because of my advancing
It's easy
years.
to sneak a lot of sugar into your diet and tea without
For
noticing.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like for me, it was like, yeah, sugary tea and like maybe like a can of Coke and then like orange juice. And it's like, that's like 8,000 calories
Yep.
just like with those 3 drinks alone. But I love when Tim Hortons has the tea, like not tea bags, but they like brew it and you can get it. I love that with sugar. That's like anytime I'm near a Tim Hortons, that's my go-to.
That does sound good.
Do you think we're ever going to get the Tim Hortons here? I keep hearing talk about it and I want it
don't
to
know.
happen.
I would be down.
I believe in my heart that it's going to happen.
It makes me a little sad that Arcade has 2 and we have 0.
Yeah, what the heck?
That's really unfair.
Doesn't Olean also has 2?
I know they have at least 1.
No, they do. They have 2 because
Where's the other
there's
one?
one over by Walmart and there's one over on the other side by like Big Lots and stuff.
Gosh, dang it.
But in other news, the Pizza Hut is coming back to Olean. So
Oh.
that's
All
exciting.
right.
Do you like Pizza Hut?
I'm not sure.
Are you a pizza fan?
I love pizza, but I've
Okay.
only actually eaten at Pizza Hut like a few times in
Yeah,
my
because
life.
Pizza Hut's been like dead for the last however many years.
Yeah. But I will say I'm not very picky about my pizza. So like anytime someone is like, this local pizza place, it's not as good. This best pizza is whatever. I'm like, well, it's pizza.
Yeah.
I like it. It's good.
Yeah. I feel like I'm somewhat picky about pizza. There's a place, I'm originally from Battle Creek, Michigan, and there's a place that I used to go all the time, and it's like my appointment. I have to, like if I'm going to be in Michigan, I have to go get a pizza from Pizza Sam's because it's just so good.
That's understandable.
And I think that Pizza King is up there. I wouldn't say it's above Pizza Sam's, but it's up there.
I do really like Pizza King. I will say there are very few like local business numbers that I actually have saved as contacts in my phone.
But Pizza King.
Pizza King
You
is
got
one
it.
of them.
Subs are great also. Here's what breaks my heart about you not having Pizza Hut. You'll never know the experience of having your friend's birthday party at a Pizza Hut. Because it was an amazing time, Allie. It was an amazing time. They'd bring the big pictures. You had the big, look like Tiffany glass hanging above you that said Pizza Hut, all brick everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
And then you go into the little side room and there was maybe 2 arcade games, but it was like you have all these quarters. You'd be like feeding the jukebox and playing X-Men or Simpsons arcade. It was a grand and glorious time.
It sounds like a wonderful experience
It was.
that I will never have.
Yeah, you'll never know. What was like the ideal birthday party for you as a kid? Did it have miso soup or Elvis?
Sadly, neither of those things really featured at birthday parties much
Okay.
when I was a kid. I feel like the 2 like main kinds of birthday parties that happened when I was a kid is either like the generic like sleepover,
I was terrible
the
at
person
sleepovers.
opens presents. Really?
Terrible. Oh my gosh. I called my mom in the middle of the night so many times. So many
That's
times.
so funny.
Yeah. Every time I'd be like, no, I'm fine.
This time I got
This
it.
is the time.
This time I got it.
I got it. And then I'd be like, 1 o'clock. I'm the only one awake. And I'm like, I'm sick. So it happened a lot.
I think
but
the first time
anyway.
my mom took me to a sleepover, she was convinced that was going to happen. And then the next morning when I came home and I was totally fine, she was kind of like scrutinizing me a little bit.
Yeah.
And then my little brother said to me, "Did you miss own little brother?" And I was like, "I've been gone for like 12 hours, buddy."
But it was
But
hard.
of course
The
I did.
separation was hard. Yes. My son is the exact opposite in this way. He went to sleepaway camp like for a week this past summer, which I never did as a kid, you know, in part because I couldn't make it through a sleepover.
Makes sense.
I mean, I did eventually. I don't want you to think that I still can't. I can now. But yeah, he went to sleepaway camp, and I was so stressed out about it. And I was just so like, we're not going to be able to talk to him, and he's just going to be like sleeping in this weird place. We got there, and I was like, all right. And he was just like gone. He was like, yeah, peace out. What are you guys still doing here? That's just his thing. All right, so you sleepover birthday or what's your
or
second
bowling
one?
birthday.
Bowling birthday. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which
okay.
I like have bowled so few times in my life that I've never been able to improve my skill.
Oh.
But for that, every time I go bowling, I'm like, yeah, I'm really bad at this. And then I bowl a little bit and I'm like, I'm not good, but I'm weirdly better than I expected.
Yeah. I like a good bowling party. It's been a while. Growing up, my friend Bo, his parents owned, they still own, a place called Marshall Lanes. They had a lot of birthday parties and stuff at. So yeah, I've bowled my share of birthday bowling parties.
All right. Well, I see. It looks like you're getting pretty close to the bottom of your bowl of miso soup here.
Yes, and I have to say, you were on the fence about the green onions. You were like,
I don't usually do it with green onions,
but I think the crunch is really nice.
I do think the crunch is nice.
I think having that like different texture in there is pretty good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think my overall review is that miso soup is 2 thumbs up.
Excellent,
it's pretty solid,
excellent.
And I mean it is good. But have you tried the Goonies?
You know,
the Dick Donner movie from the late 80s, I want to say, early 90s.
I don't think I have tried the Goonies.
Really?
How would it pair with a bowl of miso soup?
I think they would go great together. both comforting, you know, both easy. Yeah, I think it's good. So you've never seen the Goonies?
Absolutely not. I have never.
Do you know what it is at all?
Not really.
Okay. Because I don't know if we've talked about it on mic, but I know you just recently you gave in and watched Stranger Things.
That's true.
For the first time.
It was a wonderful choice. I enjoyed it so much.
I think when you watch the Goonies, you'll kind of be like, oh, okay. Because Stranger Things cribs a lot of stuff from the Goonies. Because it's basically about a group of kids who have this like house that they use as a hangout, and it's going to be sold. And so they're like, we got to find some money to save the Goonies fort, you know. And so then they kind of go on an adventure, and they get pulled into some other things. But yeah, it's like a classic kids on a dangerous mission thing. I loved it. I used to watch this movie constantly. My friend Brandon and I would go to Blockbuster, and we would rent The Goonies and The Three Amigos with Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Chevy Chase every time. Like every
Without
time.
fail.
Without fail. It was pretty much, that was basically it. Or Clue. Sometimes Clue with Tim Curry would be thrown in the mix too. But this was one that I've seen a lot. And I'm really interested to hear your take on it, because I've found a lot of times that people who have nostalgia for it love it. And I mean, there's still calls for sequels, you know, and it's a pretty stacked cast. Sean Astin's there, Josh Brolin, Corey Feldman, Ki-Hoo Kwan, who's like back in the news when he came back for, this was one of
cool.
his, he plays Data in this. This was one of his like breakout childhood roles. So,
right.
But anyway, people who grew up with it, I think, have a lot of affection and nostalgia for it. But people who, like my wife, couldn't care less. Like, we tried to watch it and she was like, this is dumb. What is this? So I don't know if like now everything old is new again, you know? And so that concept of like kids on an adventure is kind of, you know, we see that a lot in pop culture. So
that's true.
Maybe watching it with fresh eyes, you'll like it. I don't know. But we do have it in the collection. So anybody listening can check it out and watch along with us. In 2 weeks, we'll get back together. We'll talk a little bit about just what we've been reading and watching in the meantime. So you can really get to know the Goonies. And then we'll be back in a month to talk about the Goonies.
I'm excited for it.
All right, so Allie, let's just do a quick refresher. We kind of talked about what was in this, and we've posted the recipe on the But Have You Tried Tumblr. Mm-hmm. We have printouts here on the But Have You Tried bookshelf. Remember, if you're local, you can come in and check out all the books and things that we're talking about.
We'll probably put some books about miso soup related
Absolutely,
things.
And your recipe is there. But for the good people at home, why don't you just run through it real quick? Okay. Here's how you make the Allie Fesmeyer approved and Nick Gunning and But Have You Tried approved.
Absolutely. This is doubly approved
for miso
today.
soup. That's right.
Okay, so here's what we've got.
Okay.
You want to have 5 cups of water and about a tablespoon of miso for each cup.
Okay.
About a half package of tofu, 1 piece of kombu for making the broth.
Okay.
And then, as desired, green onions, carrots, wakame seaweed.
Okay.
Other vegetables that you might want to put in.
Whatever you like.
Or shrimp or, I don't know, whatever. Shiitake mushrooms.
Mushrooms were suggested by the New York Times, so.
So you want to simmer the kombu seaweed in the water in a saucepan for about 10 minutes.
Got it.
And then take it out if you're concerned. Otherwise, be adventurous and leave it in. Then you'll want to mix in the miso paste.
Okay.
I like to use a whisk so it dissolves really well.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have any like clumps of
A little
surprise
inside
miso
scoop,
paste.
yeah.
Yes. And then cut up and add your carrots and tofu. You want to soak your wakame seaweed for like 10 minutes just so it can expand a little bit and some of the saltiness can kind of wash off. And then you'll add that and then add your green onions right before you serve.
Good to go. All right. So outside of the carrots and the green onions, which are readily accessible, the rest of the stuff sounds a little difficult to get. Like, where do you
That's
typically
true.
get this kind of stuff?
So miso paste you can get at Wegmans or any kind of bigger grocery store like that often have it.
Okay.
You can probably also buy it online.
All right.
I haven't tried, but I
I'm
would
sure.
believe you could.
What can't you?
That's true. I have a hunch that you would probably also be able to find the kombu and wakame at some place like Wegmans.
Okay.
But I know for a fact that you can buy it online.
All right. That sounds good. All right. So we'll reconvene in 2 weeks for the But Have You Tried bookshelf to talk about all the stuff we're reading and watching. And then in 1 month, you'll
The
have watched The
Goonies.
Goonies. Yeah. And we'll Goonies Never Say Die. We'll get into it. All right. We'll see you then.